Right, Cindy Lawson, Fort Worth. How are you? Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Do you know a title rep by the name of Catherine Cargile? I think
Mm,
she's I think she's more Fort Worth than anything. Um,
yeah, it doesn't ring a bell.
got it. She's an old
Yeah, although
friend.
Fort Worth is huge,
It is. It is. It is. And she was, gosh, I know she was like Republic for a long time, but I think she's with
Okay.
somebody else now. Um, but I used to be down in that area, really the Dallas kind of Fort Worth region. Oh, 4 or 5 times a year teaching negotiation,
Okay.
but I haven't been down there in a long time. So let's see here. Got Deborah back from Denver. What's up? What's up? What's up? Cindy, who were you prior to Compass?
I was with Ebby Halliday Companies. They're now
Oh,
Berkshire Hathaway.
okay, and I'll be
So there
HHS.
was Williams True and Dave Perry Miller and Ebby Halliday.
Got it. Very cool. I love it. Well, we'll give our people a few minutes here, and then we're going to talk prospecting. Were you on the 9:30 call this morning?
I tried. I was in the car and I was in and out, and so not really.
No worries. No worries at all.
Okay.
It's gonna be a same topic kind of situation. So
Okay.
um and let's see here. I know Deborah, I know you were a part of that call. So we can definitely elaborate on things that we had this morning. Um but I am gonna kind of go through like the same topic base just in case you didn't want to hear that again.
Oh, I thought this was the same as the, not, let's see, 9:30 call?
Yes,
And
same
then
as the 9:30, same as the 9:30 call.
Okay, but not the
Not
one
the
we just
not
finished.
no, not the one we just finished. That was all really about sphere of influence and reach outs.
Okay,
This is going to be more again, just you guys dialoguing as a group around what we find to be the most successful prospecting. Whether that's sharing ideas, or whether that's really kind of talking about avenues as far as activities. And that could encumber everything from, what do you guys find to be successful with networking to, are you generating business from open houses? Are you generating business, from door knocking? Are you generating business from, expired lists? Those kinds of things. So that's really the basis of what I want people to share is just what do they find to be the most successful prospecting activity right now for them. And I know this morning in the 9:30 session that really went down the referral line, because there's a lot of people that on that call that were very referral based. And that has been their bread and butter is conversating with their sphere of influence about referrals and generating it from there versus new business, new people, other activities. Let's see here. Arana from Greenberg. Hello, hello from Dana Point. What else do we got on here? I'm gonna give it about 2 minutes here because we just opened up the room before we kind of get going. Anybody do anything fun for Thanksgiving outside of family? Or anything out of the norm, like you went skydiving or swam with sharks or something? I have a toddler who got potty trained over the weekend. That was my extravagant win. Here. Chelsea's in Maui. What's up? How are you, Chelsea?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. What is it? It's 7:30 there.
Yeah,
Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate
of
that.
course. Thanks for being here. I was in your last session and it was really helpful.
Good. Love it. Love it. All right. Jody's here. Let's see here.
Hello. Hi. Mike, what's your full name?
Mike Walker. Sorry. You know what? I can always
Walker.
change that. Yeah, here. Let me give it to you.
And you know,
Let's
so many
let's-
mics, so we need to like, who's
Here.
who?
I'll do this and there you go. Mike Walker with CSC. You can find me online, both my Instagram and LinkedIn stuff under Mike Walker Negotiated. Like if you look up negotiation, that's been my top topic for about 15 years as a speaker. But I've done a lot with Chirag on the sales standpoint and a lot on prospecting, which tends to be my area of preference. Negotiation is a tough topic because it's not necessarily related directly to generating new business. So I get a lot more attention on the prospecting channel. Although this last year with the NAR lawsuit, I'll tell you, I probably did 30 conferences across the country. A lot of NAR and like national board type stuff on the topic of negotiation. And for those of you who are on the East Coast, I will be at Triple Play next week, doing some negotiation stuff at Triple Play. All right, let's get going.
What's
So
triple play?
Triple Play is just a big CE credit like conference on the East Coast. Kind of combines three or four different states now. And it's a big 3 or 4 day conference that they put on, and hundreds and hundreds of speakers, lots of CE credit, one of those kinds of events. All right, let's jump in on prospecting, guys. So one of the things that I think is really beneficial for us to explore and talk about is just what people find to be successful, and whether that's, you know, personally you work open houses, personally you work expired lists, you know, sharing kind of what you find to be your expertise. This morning we dove into referral business, and a lot of people kind of said, hey, you know, we really like referrals. I've built an entire business on referrals, and we talked about that for a moment. But what I'd like to see people share is just what has been successful for you, regardless if you're in the city, if you're in the suburbs, if you're in an island like Maui. What has been successful for you guys when it comes to the prospecting topic? And let's start there. So feel free to take yourself off mute. You can also hit the chat and I will share for you. But who wants to start us off?
Hey, Mike, this is Wayne Miller in San Diego.
Hey, what's up, Wayne? How you doing?
So before we start, I just want to make sure I'm on track here. In your experience with working with top producing agents,
Yeah.
are there 3 top income producing activities, would you say?
Yeah, so I will tell you this. Most of them do not get involved in the, I'm going to call it the more cold outreach. So that be expired lists, that be open houses, that be, you know, digital lead conversion, things of that nature. And the reason for that is just the amount of effort and time that it takes. Like if you take 2 different type bodies, right? You take a body of people that know you and a body of people that don't know you, who's most likely to convert? The body of people that know you. And so they spend the majority of their time focused there. Like most top, and that doesn't mean that there aren't, you know, outliers. You know, I've got people that, you know, they specialize in expireds or foreclosures or something like that. So they're constantly working a different avenue. But in general, most of them are looking to expand their sphere of influence on a weekly basis and harvest from that sphere of influence only. Meaning they're not doing anything else. That sphere of influence is everything for them. And that means that that sphere of influence, though, is also getting mailers, they're getting emails, they're getting ads, they're getting, you know, they're doing lots of modalities as far as their conversation and how they communicate to that sphere, but they are not looking to generate things other ways. You know, their team members oftentimes or their assistants will work open houses, will do those things and can play that game, but a lot of them will focus just on their sphere of influence.
Okay, that was really helpful because I seem to be all over the place. And I was thinking, you know, maybe what's the one thing that I can focus on that's going to get me the results that I want? And what I'm hearing is sphere of influence.
Yeah, and I haven't tested this number in a few years, so don't hold me to the fire on this, but it used to be that if you had a target list size, guys, and when I say sphere of influence, that means people within your region of like sales. Like I'm able to travel to where you live to sell your home, and that's easy for me. If you had a list that was 250 people or more, that was the threshold. And so someone, if they look at their list and they said, okay, I've exported my contacts, I've done everything, I've compiled my list, and I've got 180 people. I would say we're 70 people shy in your marketplace then of having a list that's really farmable, right? And so that 250 person mark tends to be, or at least it used to be, kind of that threshold of like, above that, I'm really growable. I've got a lot of things that I can do with 250 people or more. And it's enough people to keep me busy on the phones for 45 to 60 days in repetition, right? Where if it's only 60, 70 people in my sphere of influence, that's not bad. You need to be reaching out to that sphere of influence, but you also need to be charting, weekly activity to grow that list. You need to be meeting new people, going to business things, networking. Like you need to be growing that list until that list size got really above 250. And again, I haven't tested that for a few years, probably pre-COVID. But that used to be the size list that, metric wise could annotate a growth line.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go
How
for it.
can you train your clients, or happy clients, to give you referrals? So often I hear like, oh, we didn't know they were moving and we saw the sign, or similar, we found out after the fact from their very close friends that they were moving.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is just consistency. What that tells me, if I'm running into situations where my friends forgot that I was in real estate, or they learned about, keep in mind, there are going to be certain opportunities. I've got a neighbor 2 doors down that moved. I didn't even know they moved. Like that just happens. But a lot of it is we're not teaching them how to listen for the right conversations. When someone is unhappy about their situation, right? Like I don't have a lot of space. I don't like the school districts. I hate the neighborhood. I've got a problem with, our town, our office, our city, or whatever it is. Those are pain points that eventually lead to someone relocating, right? My husband or wife is looking for a new job. We're trying to move into this, the schools are terrible. I don't like what's happening with my kids' elementary. Like those are the conversation pieces that tell me someone is on the edge. Someone is there's only so much of that we can tolerate as people before we're like, okay, time to relocate. And so you're constantly wanting to talk about more problems and the pain points than asking your clients in your social sphere about, hey, do you know anybody that wants to buy and sell real estate? Because by the time they know someone based on that dialogue, it's too late. They're already with another agent. Deborah, I see your question. Do you count other agents in my outreach? No. I think it is an extremely beneficial activity and approach to create an entire list of farming of other real estate agents. I think it brings back its benefits tenfold when you have like a nurturing sequence that is just for other agents. Not a lot of people have created the time or the value around creating that for themselves. But I will tell you this, in multiple offer situations, especially in environments that we just experienced, for the last 36 months, an agent who knows you get treated differently. You do. I don't care whether you think it's right, wrong, good or bad, you get treated differently. And so if you are farming other agents from an aspect of just constantly staying on top of mind, checking with them, hey, I saw you close this, just wanted to say congratulations, etc., like no strings attached, like that alone can be a huge attribute for your clients, right? So I do think it's a good idea, but I don't count that in client outreach in regards to prospecting.
Sorry, I meant like Mike Rivers in Boston. If I called Mike, like my referral partners, not local agents.
Oh, I see what you're saying from like a referral standpoint.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd count that as I have a hard time with affiliate or referral sources, right? Because it's something where it's like, I guess they have a higher probability or maybe the same probability of relocation or knowing somebody that I think it would be circumstantial. Yeah, I would count that because I would typically count, me calling a current client who just closed and came up on my list, right? Because I'm just going through my list. My sphere of influence is everybody on my list. Now, if they're a real estate agent and they're not someone who's going to refer business to me, even though they might be in my sphere, they're not on my contact list. But if another agent in an area who might be a referral source for you and has been a referral source for you, I would count that as an outreach. If all you were calling though were those individuals, I'd say we probably would see a decline in in conversion and overall numbers. But I definitely would count that within my wheelhouse of prospecting. Wayne Miller, what do you mean by feeder markets? Is that what you were referring to in regards to just the someone
I
in
think
a
that's
feeder
what that,
market?
yeah, I think that's what she was talking about, our feeder markets, reaching to those agents in those areas and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that, like I live in Westchester County, just north of New York City, and there's a lot of people that move from the city up to, Westchester County. That's a decent feeder environment. It's two different MLS systems. And so I would count that. If it was something where, I'm just calling somebody randomly in another state, and I'm like, hey, you got anybody in Mississippi that wants to move to New York? I don't know if I count that as necessarily a fruitful one, but a feeder market, yes. Let's see here. Colleen agreed, when I have a client that wants to attend an open house, I call ahead of the time, make sure that I start to build a relationship 100%, and I introduce myself, etc. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes that doesn't work. But I think that, the more repetitive you are, the more consistent you are in building those relationships, the easier it is for you to do business, period, in your area. Mike Rivers, go ahead, my friend. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question kind of aside from sphere of influence. Do you see any higher, I guess, return on investment depending on the type of cold prospecting, like for sale by own or likely to sell, that, circle prospecting, that sort of stuff? Do you see any of them being better places to start than another?
I mean, I'm a fan of circle prospecting. And don't be wrong, for investment purposes, I was an investment guy for a really long time. So like counting the cold lists and trying to figure out ways to get people to call me back and get on the phone, that was my entire world. For the amount of work it took, if it's all I've got, sure, give it a whirl. I think the likely to sells is a unique proposition that you guys have with Compass that I would absolutely utilize especially if I have a smaller sphere of influence. And I'm like, listen, I can only go to so many networking events, right, to meet new people. So they're scheduled, but I need something else to do with my time. Absolutely working those. Anything that is an identifier that shows recency that someone was interested in selling is better than just a cold, sales list. So expireds, those are great. You just have to, if you're going to go at one of those lists, like if you're going to work open houses, you want to research what works. You want to talk with other agents. You want to learn the process. Don't just go and say, I'm going to go do 5 open houses. And then you didn't get any leads and you're like, oh, open houses don't work. It's just like someone who jumps on a lead, like a digital lead platform, like an OpCity or pays for Zillow leads or something like that. And then they get a bunch of phone calls that they don't think are pre-qualified. Like, oh, these were just junk leads. It's like, learn what you're doing before you're going to go do it. And all of them have a decent ROI if you're willing to practice what it takes in order to make that successful. Same with for sale by owners, right? Do I think that's the biggest bang for buck? No, I still think your sphere of influence is going to pay out 2 to 3 times more in a marker than cold efforts will.
Right. Could I actually kind of ask a follow-up question, and it might actually answer Nomita's question here about what exactly is circle prospecting.
Sure.
So Nomita, I guess the answer to your question, what is circle prospecting? Essentially, let's say you have a listing and it's sold, the first week on the market. Then you call all of the surrounding neighbors and, you have to find their numbers first, obviously, get in touch with them, say, did you see my listing? It went, for X amount over the list price. Just curious if you had anyone, I don't know, looking to get into the neighborhood, or are you looking to make a move in the future? So just circling around the neighborhood that you're doing business in, essentially. But so my kind of follow-up question, I basically purchased a list of an area I wanted to farm in a town nearby me not too long ago. And I dumped the list into the Compass CRM, and it just spit back out. They basically transferred them all into likely to sells, because the list that I purchased was people that hadn't sold in 10 years or hadn't bought a property in 10 years. So now I have this list of addresses that I have to go and find numbers for. One of the speed bumps I'm running into is I don't have phone numbers for any of these people. So it turns I'm all excited about prospecting into, okay, now I got to go find phone numbers, and I'm only calling 7 people in
Yeah.
3 hours because I have to go and do all this research now. So what do you feel like the best way is to get around that?
I mean, this is, and I hate to be frank with this, right? But it's kind of like, if you're going to invest the time in purchasing a list to take that approach, you also have to invest the time into creating the phone numbers and the ability then for you to run through that list. And so I don't know, that might be a VA, hiring just a digital VA who's just going to research those numbers to the point where, 2 days worth of work, they probably get in front of you enough that then you can spend 20 minutes dialing 10 numbers and that being the outreach for that day. And they're still working on filling in the list, but I would invest the resources to complete the list, because without it, you're going to experience exactly what you're saying right now. You're going to experience the kind of, I just spent a lot of time to dial 7 numbers, and that's not the volume that's going to get you the type of ROI that's necessary with that kind of list. The other thing though that I would be looking at is also like, so circle prospecting, I'm going to say you're half right on it. It is a part of circle prospecting is when I sell something or when I do something, it's marketing the things that are around that attribute. But in addition to that, it's also constantly surfacing the perimeter of businesses, restaurants, groups, clubs, teams that are in those regions, so that my reach out efforts, my mailer, my sale, my email, my phone call is not the only thing that they see when they're walking around town. You want to like think about the agent, and it might be you yourself, so congratulations, but think about the agent who dominates your neighborhood, who dominates your particular region. They are everywhere. They're in the PTAs, they're in the grocery stores, they're inside the restaurants. Like everywhere you go in your town, you see their face. That's not by accident. That's circle prospecting. That way, then when I do sell something and I market to a group of 50 homes right around it, not only do they see that I was just successful, they turn around, they see me somewhere else also. And so it's also knowing that if you purchase that list and you're going to start to reach out to these people, be other places with them too, Mike. Be other places within that neighborhood that you want to farm, so that you show up more than just on a flyer amongst 15 other people that have also sent them a flyer.
So I've been also farming our area, and then recently one company presented us with a thing called List Gen, a lovely, nicely done brochure, high quality. And then what they do is they give market trends, and then they have a little note, and then they also say what's happening in the neighborhood, because even though we may be farming, we don't always get all the listings. And in my case, I've also door knocked all these places. So I've found that the people who I have not met still have gone with agents from out of the area because some relative, somebody. But what I have also got my V8 now to do is to find all the, as you suggested, get the emails or phone numbers for them so I could call. I do have a fair number, but not all. And the other thing is, they come up with the home anniversary. So when there's a home anniversary, then an email goes out saying, congratulations, you've been in your home so long, etc. Happy home. Can we get together and talk about future plans, or do you have an idea? Something like that. But I guess with that circle prospecting or having sold something, I might start that way, is find out what the home anniversary and get a conversation going there, or write a personal note. And
no, Mita, and I think the personal notes are great, right? I think about the difference, guys, between a passive touch and an active touch. Your active touches are really the only things that matter in regards to what is the context of the information. A passive touch can be anything. I could literally send you a comic book once a month. Like, it could have nothing to do with real estate, but as long as my real estate brand is there and you're like, oh, I got another comic book, or I got another whatever it is, it doesn't matter what I send you, because the purpose is not conversion. It's to stay in your peripheral, and it's a touch point. It's a brand touch point. It's so that, oh, and I get balloons for that. It's so that I can get to a situation so that I'm constantly top of mind of a brand that is represented in your area. Right. But like, I don't, Nomita, what I don't want you to get hung up on is what am I sending? Doesn't matter. As long as you say, if you're going to farm, you got to put 14 months into it. 14
True.
consistent months. It's got to
They
be
said, like,
consistent.
Yeah.
And
Well, we
so,
were doing it regularly, but with this particular uh, marketing piece, they said give us 2 years. But
I agree
and
with that.
and I haven't. This last year's been crazy with all kinds of other stuff happening, so I haven't been out there. But I try to get out there like at least 3 times a year. And I do also sponsor a big event for the holiday, Indian holiday. So I pay for all the food. So then I'm there and they see me, but it's not the rest of the community. It's like, only the Indian people come. So I've been trying. I think in my farm that year, and 2021 was my best year in the farm. I had like 9 listings, but
Yeah.
I dominated the market that day. But now there have been 1, 2, 3, and they're different people listing different houses.
And that's the thing. And that's going to ebb and flow based on those specific people's social spheres. And that's why, again, if anybody who tries to rely on a singular method of prospecting, guys, is going to have a stunted or a very structured return on it. Meaning it's not going to be growth, and it'll have a diminishing return over the years if I stay only with that one method. So if I'm like, oh, I farmed in my first year, I got 9, the second year I got 5. Well, in the third year, you're going to get 3. And on the, like, it's going to diminish. It's got to be in addition to other things. And so we're no longer in an environment, guys, where a singular piece of communication is going to get through consistently. There's too much spam. There's too much spam in text, phone, email, mailers. Like, we got too much of it. But if they see you everywhere for that little blip second, for that 10 seconds you're going to get of the brain, where they go, oh, like, I can tell you there's an agent who I see her flyer every single time I walk into the grocery store. Like, I don't know her that well, but she is top of the mind all the time because I see it right there every single freaking day. Right. So if a sale came up and all of a sudden I go, oh, you know what? I'm looking for someone in my neighborhood. There's 50 people that are licensed in my neighborhood. Right. Hers is going to be somebody who I'm going to call just strictly out of convenience. I'm probably also going to call someone who I'm friendly with, but I'm also going to get her information because I see her every single day. That is more important. Frequency is more important, guys, than anything else. And if you want to kind of emulate something, look at insurance companies, right? Geico, look at the Gecko, look at Progressive with Flow. Like, how often do you see these people? You see these people all the time. You hear them on the radio, you hear them on an advertisement, you see it on social media, you see it on the news radio. Like, they know that in order to get to their target consumer, they have to have a lot of modality. You're the same way. You just have it on a smaller level, right? So you've got to touch people in multiple ways, which is why I said, if you focus on your sphere of influence, right, and say, okay, I'm going to grow this sphere. I'm going to go to networking. I'm going to grow this sphere. And then I'm going to be hyper-focused on my sphere of influence and providing value. It is the best way to harvest your best returns. Right? When someone's like, oh, my sphere of influence doesn't like me, that's a problem, right? Like, when you're like, I got to start new, I got to start fresh. Like, we got to talk about something else then. And it's not your prospecting efforts or activity. Questions on that? Perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you said in the last call that you sort of have a series of potential topics to discuss with your sphere of influence when you call them. Do you personalize it? Let's say you have a connection on LinkedIn. Maybe it's a property manager in the city or something. You don't know them very well. Do you go to their LinkedIn page, find something to ask them about that's going to be like personal to them? Do you do that for every call, or do you just say, all right, today I'm saying I'm going with this topic and see if people need help with their taxes?
Yeah, I mean, there are seasonal topics that, like, I might spend an entire week or 2 weeks, calling about. Especially as we move into like the new part of the year. If there's something that is specifically, on top of mind, I'm calling everybody. I'm going to try to do an entire rotation of that call because it's an important piece and it's easy for me to talk about. Now, I've got to take into consideration response and conversion. And if nobody's really wanting to talk about that, then I've got to be be willing to pivot and do another topic. But I would say that it's probably one and the same. And that is that if you take the time to put your list together, and I'm going to just continue to reemphasize this, guys, like until I'm blue in the face. You take the time to put your list together. When I make calls, I'm blind for the first round of calls. I'm not blind for the second round, right? I have their LinkedIn information now on my call list. I don't have to go to LinkedIn to research that call. Like I know I have notes from every person that I've reached out to, their family, they bought before that. Like I have everything. So I then can change my call purpose just based on what's on my call sheet. And I don't have to then spend the time to go and research. You know, I can get through outreach in 20, 30 minutes a day and just be done. And I've got enough calls put in that I know I'm going to get a good conversion on. But it doesn't mean that research is a bad thing. I just don't want you spending like, 15 hours a week trying to research and do outreach, because the most important thing is not necessarily the topic. It's just that you go into these phone calls with the mindset of service. Like, how can I serve you? And people love to give their opinion about things, guys. So like if you do want framework that is going to have a higher success rate of getting people to respond, ask their opinions about the market. Ask their opinions about, someone else's house that's sold. Ask for people's opinions, because they're like, oh, I'll give you my opinion. Like, that's a great conversation starter. Charlie, what do you think, my friend? See you nodding your head, so I'm just calling you out.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're asking people questions, that's a good, people like to talk.
Yeah. People like to talk, and they're freely, we love giving our opinion because it serves our ego purpose. Even if it's short, it's still a response.
Yeah, I tend to talk too much and not listen enough. Trying to learn.
We're all guilty of that.
Every salesperson out there is probably guilty of that to a certain degree or level.
One thing I've done I've been farming my neighborhood for about a decade, like the neighborhood I live. So then, naturally you're just in the neighborhood more, you're meeting people more. If you happen to be in a neighborhood that's good to farm, it's just a natural organic fit. But one thing I've done is I've tracked average sale price or median sale price per square foot, days on market, and percent of list price. And I've tracked my sales versus everyone else's, and I can show on like my postcards that go out to the neighborhood that I'm way outperforming on all three of those statistics, the average sale in the neighborhood. It turns out there's a lot of pretty bad realtors out there. So it's not hard to show like, hey,
Right.
Look, quantitatively, you're better off going with me. Now, I still am surprised how few listings I get. I mean, I get some, and the referral part of my business is definitely from past clients is definitely bigger, but I don't know. That's because I'm an analytical person. I'm like, well, look, you can hire somebody else, but here's the data.
Yeah. And data is it's actually a great converter, and I'll leave you guys with this, because I know we're out of time, but you just made me think of something. The purpose, obviously, of a lot of these calls, and the reason we want to be so service forward, right, is that we want to get to a point where we can engage into a real estate activity with a consumer, right? So if there's someone who's like, oh, I've kind of considered buying a home, we want to move them to that next stage of like financing or pre-qual or things of that nature. And so how you can pose those questions in conversation is very often through what we call suggestive activity. So for instance, if Charlie was my target phone call, I might call him up and I'd say, hey, Charlie, it's Mike, I'm calling today to talk about real estate. And one of the questions I have is I'm wondering if anybody has ever showed you what your house is worth today. Has anybody actually ever dropped off a report at your home? And Charlie might say, no one's actually ever dropped it off. I have an idea of what I think it's worth. Well, would you mind if I dropped off a report? I'm suggesting an activity that would move Charlie and I into a more serious space of conversation. Now, if Charlie's not in the market, he'd be like, no, you don't have to do that right now, but I'm glad to know that that's available. Fantastic. If Charlie goes, yeah, actually, I would love to see what my house is worth right now. I'm going to do a quick report and I'm going to drop that off, right? Because that moves me into an activity now with the consumer. So suggest activities for people. Has anybody ever just showed you what's available on the market? I know you've been renting for a while, et cetera. Is anybody just taking you out and showing you things, right? Suggest an activity that moves a prospect buyer forward. Suggest an activity that moves a seller prospect forward, right? A lot of those are great questions for people. And I like the approach of, has anyone ever showed you? Has anybody ever given you? Has anybody ever shared with you? You know, that kind of dialogue that can help put people into a yes or no category for me to say, great, here's the next step. Let's do this. Do you have a free time this Saturday? I'd love to show you something over here. At least then you have an idea of what's on the market. That will never be something, guys, that isn't worth your time. Even if they don't engage as a client right away, it puts them right in that you did something neat for me for free. And so there is a residual guilt on that does have reciprocity. And so consider that, guys. I know that not everybody has the time for that, but it's a great way to dialogue with prospects. All right, I'm gonna shut us down for today. Thank you guys for your time, both this morning for the training. And thank you guys for everything that you're doing. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I look forward to doing more trainings with you guys through Chirag and his organization. So mahalo, thank you so much. We'll see you, Chelsea. Bye, guys.
Okay.